Today we're looking at how to write supplemental essays that wow. Is there such a thing? So I did question this when I first started out in this business. Is there really such a thing as a standout supplemental essay? The main statement gets a lot of um, credit and attention in the application process for making that connection with the college. But the supplemental essays, including the ones we're going to go over today, are actually uh, other side doors into making those connections. And uh, they can be places for some really fun, strong writing and a place to share a side of you that maybe is less literary, narrative, a little more casual, conversational. And uh, people love connecting with students in the reading process in these other smaller statements that are maybe less mastered, if you will. So, a little about me before we get started. I'm a college admissions coach. I've been working in this business for almost a decade, and I'm also a professional writer. I went to Yale and got a degree in writing there, taught there for a while as well as a few other universities. And my mother worked in college admissions at College Data. She was the editor in chief of the website, which is a college search site. If you haven't ever checked it out, I recommend you go check out collegedata.com. And I was looking for ways to bring my writing skill to more people, to coach more people through writing, and um, I stumbled into this line of work, and it's really rewarding for me. I really enjoy helping everyone find their inner voice, their inner writer, and the college applications, fascinatingly enough, a place where we can do that. So it's not just a place to pull out our hair and scream at the computer that we can't figure it out. It is a place where you can actually discover your talent and your craft and your voice. So let's move ahead with the agenda for the day. So the main supplement we're going to look at today is the Why Us essay. I imagine some of you have come across this already. We'll get into it in detail. What makes one really stand out? You might think it's very formulaic what we do with this prompt, with this essay. It can be, but it can also be very personal. So let's talk about that. We're going to look at a couple of examples of strong Why Us essays. One that's short and one that's long. So you'll notice when you're doing the Common App or other application platforms that the prompt Why Us can have as short as 150 word limit and as big as 650. And what do you do with all that real estate when it's really tiny and it's really long? So we're going to look at a couple of examples of that. We will also learn the steps for writing what's called a super essay. So there are many schools asking you why us, and it can really drain you and add a lot of hours of work to your life to rewrite it every single time. Instead, I want to propose that we create what's called a super essay, where we identify key content we include in each Why Us statement, no matter how long it is, and we use that as a kind of template and repopulate that template for each school. And I'll talk about that process. There's another section of the essay that I think does not get enough attention, that is kind of a mystery to a lot of students, but is actually a great opportunity. It's called the additional information section. It's a place where you can zoom into your resume and elements of your transcript that may be overlooked in the rest of your application and your supplements. So we're definitely going to dive into that, make sure you know how to use that, and get the school's attention on key things in your resume. And then lastly, we will open for questions from all of you. So if you do have questions, and I imagine you do, because this process is such a mystery for so many of us, put them in the Q&A button in the Zoom at the bottom of the Zoom window, or if you've moved it around, some people put it other places. But it's that Q&A feature where you can type it up, and at the end, I will be sure to answer you. So whenever you have a question, you can just throw it in there, and at the end, I will make sure to answer it. If the chat is a little easier for you, you can also use the chat. All right, let's get going. So I imagine maybe at this point you've read a bunch of applications, you've looked at the Common App, you've noticed there's this trend. Here's a few wordings for how this Why Us essay is prompted. What about being a student at X university most excites you? Why did you apply to each of the academic programs listed on your application? Submit a statement of purpose that communicates your plans and goals related to the pursuit of your chosen program. How might you engage specific courses, opportunities, and/or communities here? Share something you'd like the admissions committee to know about you, your interests, your background, your identity, your community, and how it has shaped what you want to get out of your college experience at X school. Describe your academic career plans and any special interests, for example, undergraduate research, academic interests, leadership opportunities that you are eager to pursue as an undergraduate. All of these prompts are asking you to do the same thing, which is tell them specifics about you and the school you're applying to. Connect what the school offers to your resume over and over and over. Articulate questions that the school's offering will answer. This is really key. This is maybe something we don't think about very much in writing this. Schools admit students. Kind of obvious, right? Schools admit students. What do students do? Students pursue questions. They have questions they need answers to, so they go to school to answer those questions, especially college and grad school. Maybe before then, when you're not as independent, you're going to school because the world told you to. But with college, there's less of that. There still is some of that, and more a need for an autonomy. And schools, universities, colleges are looking for signs of your autonomy, your independent, intrinsic desire to learn. So this supplement is a very good place to give them the actual academic questions that whirl around in your mind and that you want to get answered. This is a space to articulate your philosophy of learning. I recommend using some kind of metaphor to articulate that, and I will show you examples of what I mean. And this statement should read more like a cover letter or a response in a job interview. So it's not so literary like the main statement is in the Common App or the personal insight questions in the UC application. Although the UC application, I would say, is a somewhat separate thing in between a kind of classic supplement and a Common App essay. So it's lighter on the literary and heavier on school and resume details. So let's just go ahead and take a look at what I mean by all of this. So we will come back to all these points as I move forward in today's webinar, but I want us just to read a good example of what I'm talking about so you understand more fully before we kind of open up all those drawers. So this is the first sentence of a very strong YS essay that was very successful for this student. A good education is like a good playlist, a rich and eclectic journey through my interconnected core passions. At BU, I will dig into mathematics and mathematics education like I dig into my favorite R&B beats, broadly and deeply. In problem solving and mathematics, I will build on my work with linear programming and ask, what strategies have I yet to explore? Similar to how a rapper or a singer can express the same truth. In history of mathematics, I can't wait to learn what mathematicians through history have reached similar conclusions despite different approaches. As a peer tutor, I adjust my teaching to each classmate, varying my questions and examples. Dr. Greg Benoit's approaches to mathematical solutions, gamification, and student-centered engagement inspire me to consider an independent study with him and ask, how can teachers relay mathematics to better reach a, quote, aha moment with students? In my indie funk playlist of female and queer artists, I feel empowered, like when I stumbled upon BU's Vagimo Plus club table at my tour. I saw myself at Vagimo Plus, sharing what it really is to be a woman and even doing a vagina monologue on campus. I also love expanding my musical taste, like Brazilian favela funk, in the same way the BU Hub expands educational taste. In Portuguese for Spanish speakers 1, I look forward to learning how to use how the two languages correlate linguistically and culturally. I can't wait to make this playlist of courses a reality at BU. So there you have an example of a short YS essay, and it really does hit all of the bells very well. And of course, this student is now attending BU as a mathematics education major. So let's kind of walk through some of the elements that I'm talking about, and then we will look at how you can start some of this on your own. All right. So first things first, let's talk about some of these school offerings that she brings up and how she connects them to her resume and to questions she brings. So the first is this course, Problem Solving in Mathematics, which builds on her linear programming work, which was something she was studying in school. And the course answers the question, what strategies have I yet to explore? And then she presents the idea of an independent study with a professor named Professor Benoit, who studies creative teaching techniques. And that's going to build on her work tutoring math in low-income and minority communities. And answers the question, how can teachers relate mathematics to better reach an aha moment with students? So she's clearly connecting exactly what the school does with exactly what she does, and she brings her student questions with her. She clearly presents herself as someone who is a match to the school, who has a real strong desire to learn what the school can offer, learn what the school can teach. She also identifies things beyond academics, like the feminist club and the Portuguese course, which she would take for enrichment, not just academic curiosity. And then, most important, she uses this philosophy of learning, building a playlist, very consistently, very creatively. It really helps the reader connect to the person. So the YS essay can feel very dry, very rote, very by formula. But when she uses this really personal metaphor for her idea of what a good education needs, you really get to connect to her personality and what she cares about. I read this essay and I think this is a fun person. This is someone I would want to hang out with. And this is something that schools are looking for across the application. So bravo to this student. She did very well with her admissions that year. So now I want to go into some of the elements of starting a YS essay and the idea of the super essay. The way I suggest doing this is working with the essay a little bit backwards. So we're going to kind of what's called a reverse engineer how to do the essay and then put it together. All right, and I do see that some questions in the chat and the Q&A are coming in. Very briefly, the webinar from the other day, from Tuesday, I will happily send out the video for that if you want to check it out. In that video, we go into a lot more of the things admissions offices are looking for, and then all of the tips for the main statement. If you have questions about the YS essay and the additional info section, please throw them into the Q&A like I've already seen some of you do, and I'll be sure to get to those. All right, so the YS super essay. The first thing you want to do is identify 2 to 3 contrasting course types in your intended areas of study that excite you. So this is not like yet going to college websites to look at all of their course offerings. It's more like you're thinking about the types of courses you might want to have wherever you might end up. Of course, looking at schools really helps decide what that could be. So please do your research however you need to. Here's some examples. So a business student might look for a history of capitalism course, a horizontal leadership course, and a course on impact investing. So these are 3 types of courses they might love doing. And so when they start putting together statements after they've done their super essay, they will research actual course titles that fit into these types. A neuroscience and women's health student. So she might look at human development in the brain, a course then on domestic abuse treatment and prevention, and then maybe a course on medical ethics. And then this math education student I mentioned, history of mathematics, creative problem solving in mathematics, and Portuguese 1. So these are some examples of course types that students would fit into their super essay. Again, it's not specific courses from specific schools yet. It's literally just slots in the essay where they would put in specifics later. And then after finding courses, find at least one type of special research opportunity in your area of interest. So you have 2 to 3 courses, and then you have a special research opportunity. So the BU applicant had those courses I mentioned, and then she had this independent study with Professor Benoit. So a business student might look for a fellowship in foreign emerging markets. The neuroscience student might look for an independent study looking at the link between MS and language learning. And the math student looked for independent research specializing in teaching math to ESL students. All right, so the next element after courses and special research opportunities are the extracurriculars. And they should be extracurriculars that are in line with extracurriculars you already do, because you will, as you've already learned, all of this stuff needs to connect to your resume. So a business student will look for a business leaders club, a Chinese American club, a social investing group. A neuroscience and women's health student will look for a women's shelter to volunteer at, the university band, and maybe playing there, and then a women in medicine club. And the math education student is going to look for math tutoring for local youth and the feminist club, and then the Portuguese course could be a third element. So again, we're not looking for the specifics, we're looking for types of opportunities that are a continuation of the extracurriculars you already do. After you've found the courses, the independent study or special research opportunity, and the extracurriculars, now you want to articulate questions that you want to bring to these offerings and that these offerings will then answer. So a business student might think about how does taxing the top 1% impact economic growth? How can businesses and local impact organizations partner and learn from each other? That neuroscience student, she might ask, how can Western ethical frameworks inform medical research? How could domestic violence prevention work connect with my research into neuroscience? And that math student, as we learned, is looking at how math teaching strategies are going beyond what she already knows, what is out there that she doesn't know, and how can teachers relay mathematics in new ways to reach that aha moment with students. All right, so we have courses, special research opportunities, extracurriculars, we have questions, and what's the last thing we need? To connect it all to the resume. So let's take a look at how a business student does this. This is a specific business student. We're going to read his statement later. So they connect a history of capitalism course with a business summer camp they did. They connect a horizontal leadership course with an internship they did at Cisco. By the way, horizontal leadership, if none of you know what these buzz terms are, don't worry. I had to learn all of this too when I was helping the student. Horizontal means leading through a sort of lateral peer-to-peer style as opposed to a hierarchical top-down style. Horizontal leadership is a cutting-edge idea and something this student was really curious about and something they learned about that's going on at Cisco. The impact investing course, they're going to connect with a Georgetown summer business course where they learned about impact investing. And then a fellowship in foreign emerging markets, they would connect to an investment firm internship they also did. A business leadership club would connect to their high school business club. The Chinese American club at the school would connect to the local organization of Chinese Americans in which they were an intern. And then a social investing group would be a continuation of their plans for a social impact restaurant that they had created. By the way, if you don't know what social investing is, it's using a business, creating a local business to invest in community. It's not just to create a business and make money, it's to make an impact in community locally. So let's put all this together with a specific example from this student, their application to University of Michigan Ross School of Business. So this supplement is longer. The last one was 250 words. This one's 550 words. So this is a longer version of the same thing. You're going to get more details about the student in this. So I just want you to as you hear this, to listen for the moments the student gives you the proper background on them. They basically establish themselves as a budding specialist in business, and especially the kind of business they want to do, social impact business, and how they weave in all of this stuff, all the school offerings, the resume elements, and keeping it sounding personal, unique to them, not something that was a template and done by formula. All right, so this is Miles, and let's listen to this. In middle school, I scoured the news to learn how events across the world affected businesses I used. How did the Paris Accords affect my favorite stock, Amazon? Did American dissatisfaction with globalization and automation hand Donald Trump the presidency? This curiosity led me to take business-focused camps. Camp Bismarck for an entrepreneur's perspective, Wall Street 101 at Bentley University for global finance and investing exposure, and an externship at Cisco Systems for a high-tech experience. My eagerness to go beyond the traditional ABC view of business, accounting, banking, and consulting, took me to Georgetown Global Business Academy. My professor, Greg O'Connor, illuminated the power of renewable energies to lift millions out of poverty in emerging markets. I awoke to the intersection of business and social justice, which could benefit the lives of millions, if not billions, of people. So here the students established their big inciting incident, if you will, before they dive into the school-specific stuff. As a Ross BBA student, I will dive deeper into this intersection in the same way I approach building a computer. Every subject matter, like every part, interconnects, building on one another. I want to connect the dots between business, global politics, and societal trends. In business government relations, I will seek to build on my internship at Anchor Pacific Capital, where Anton Key, CEO, shared his thoughts on how fiscal policy, both in San Francisco and nationwide, would affect his property management firm in 10 years. This foresight to predict and, more importantly, plan around the cause and effect of policy particularly interested me. It got me wondering how proposed taxes on the top 1% would impact the overall economy in the future. Furthermore, how will government fiscal policy related to the pandemic affect government debt? In the same way that I add a graphics card to power demanding applications, I will add business law and ethics to discover how successful leaders integrate business ethics into their goals and understand the legal aspects and responsibilities of their businesses. I will partake in business and impact to continue my SMOCA experience, working with nonprofits and local community leaders. How can organizations and local businesses work together to fulfill their missions and grow profits? Like adding fans to cool the motherboard, I admire how Ross cools capitalism with business strategies for the base of the pyramid. I look forward to learning more about how business can increase their bottom line while improving the lives of those in poverty. Just like a computer cannot run without a cooling system, businesses cannot last if they continuously exploit their labor force. Inclusive capitalism ensures sustainability. This focus resonates with my passion to embrace faith, wisdom, service, and community. I take comfort in the University of Michigan's emphasis on diversity and the value of different cultures, identities, and personalities. In the same way that I support local businesses during my SMOCA internship, I plan to join the University of Michigan Asian American Association and the Detroit Neighbor Entrepreneurs Project to create personal, memorable connections with fellow Asian Americans and local business owners. Every computer I build is useless without power, and no business has value without these important principles, which show me that I would feel right at home at Michigan Ross. All right. And as you can imagine, Miles definitely got an offer from this school. He's actually attending UC Berkeley Haas School of Business now as an undergrad. But he did very, very well. He got offers from a lot of these business schools. So let's take a look at a few of the elements in this longer essay that help it be a wow YS essay. Obviously, he's connecting the school's offerings to his resume over and over and over, and his questions. So the business and government relations course is building on his internship at this real estate investment firm. And then the course business and impact, and then business strategies at the base of the pyramid are building on his experience as an intern at the local organization for Chinese Americans. He identifies what he will do beyond academics, so this Asian American Association and the Detroit Neighborhood Entrepreneurs Project, but he also identifies his values. He makes a strong statement of his values. This is a really wonderful thing you can do in a YS essay that's longer, is to talk about your kind of personal mission statement. So he says at some point, I believe in community service and all these other things. And that's a great thing to do in a longer statement, which helps him open up the discussion of things beyond academics. When a student has a sense of values and articulates them, it helps, again, paint this picture of the autonomous learner, someone who is self-motivated, who has a very clear connection to their passion and what makes them tick. And obviously he uses this metaphor of building a computer to build his essay. And he doesn't overdo it, right? It's a very light touch. It's not something he dives into deeply. It's just a way to carry the essay and give us a sense of an image that fits the student. So the first student with the shorter essay has a big personality, is very extroverted, and the image they chose, the playlist, gives a bit of that personality. And here with Miles, who is more introverted, loves to build computers, loves to puzzle on things in his mind, uses that image for his essay, and it fits him. And you can see how that idea of how things fit together and cool each other or charge each other or power each other is a good image for how he wants to approach learning and who he is. So that's all I want to say for now about the YS essay. If you have more questions, again, I'll be going over those briefly in a minute. So let's be sure to put those into the chat or the Q&A later. Now I want to talk about this section called additional info. So if you have never heard of this, this is a section where you get to say what you could not say anywhere else, but is important to you. A lot of students overlook this section, and it's a really lost opportunity if they do, because it's a place where you can make colleges notice things they would not normally notice about your resume because they're not fitting into supplements, they're not fitting into the main statement, and maybe they won't look at your college resume if you attach it. So the additional info section is a place to make them go, hey, look at this, pay attention to this, this is important. There are two parts to the additional info section. Since the pandemic, they added a COVID section. In the COVID section, which is not as important perhaps for what I just mentioned about highlighting the resume, it's a place where you can talk about hardships from COVID that affected your education. So a sick teacher or family member, you yourself getting COVID, a school closing because of COVID, a parent losing a job. These are major events that the pandemic might have caused that will affect your education. What's most important about listing this stuff is what you do to overcome the hardship. So you can't just list like, oh, I couldn't take AP Physics because my teacher was sick. You have to say what you did about it. So my example here says, my physics teacher was away for 2 months and I couldn't prepare for the AP exam. I took an online AP Physics course that summer and will take the exam this year. So that's a good way of using this space. There are certain things that should not go in here. So online learning, while a struggle for everybody and a challenge for everybody, does not belong here. Also, struggles from quarantine does not belong here because these are things common to everyone. Everyone had to deal with online learning. Everyone in college has to deal with online learning. So don't mention things that everyone's dealing with because it's going to sound like complaining if you do. And I don't mean to say that your struggle is small. It was hard. It might still be hard. So not trying to diminish you there. However, for the college application, don't put it in. Then there's a general section, which is about 650 words. The COVID section is 500 words. So this is also a place you can put hardships that affected your education and what you did about them. But these are hardships that are not from COVID. So let's say your family is multi-generational in the house, and there is a lot of people living there. And there's a grandparent and your parents and maybe an uncle or an aunt, and then your kids, and then maybe you and your siblings, and then maybe cousins are there. So a very full house. That kind of thing is a hardship that could affect your education, having an overfull house. Or having a family member who's sick, not from COVID, but from something else, like a mental illness. This is a place where you can talk about these hardships. And schools do want to know about them. Most important, though, is what you did to overcome them to make sure you are college ready. That's most key, that to show them that you are college ready. So if you had a grandparent that was dealing with Alzheimer's in the house, for example, and you had to take care of them sometimes, that got in the way of homework. So sharing that's really important. What did you do about that? And there are other kinds of hardships that might come up that are personal. Your own personal relationship with mental illness might be something to mention here. Again, it's more important to mention what you do to overcome these things to show you're college ready. The most important thing with this section, though, I think is not so much the hardship part, but the resume elements that you zoom into. So this is a really beautiful space to do that. Things like independent research projects. If you're at an IB school, your final IB paper, your any independent work you've done through IB, or any independent work you've done outside of high school, this is a place to put it in detail, as opposed to in a resume. I'm going to go over how to do that in a second. Internships, jobs, volunteer positions that really are important to you. And then summer school programs like doing a pre-college and detailing some of that work. This is a place to zoom into that. Again, this is different from writing a resume, which you should do for your application as well. It is a little more detailed than that. Let me talk about what that means. So first, some do's and don'ts that we'll get into how to write this. So you do not write an additional info statement in narrative prose. It is not a creative essay. Students that try to add another creative essay into this section, I think, are wasting this space. If a school wants a creative essay from you, they will ask for it. They will ask you a supplement. So I really encourage you to speak in bulleted form. So it's almost like you're writing a resume, but you're going into more detail. The additional info section is optional. So a lot of students don't do it because they think it's not necessary. They have nothing extra to say. You do have something extra to say. Most applications don't give you enough room to really share all the important things you need to share. So I do recommend using this and not leaving it blank. However, you are on borrowed time with the reader. They will read it if you put stuff in there, but you got to be really efficient and economical with their time. So speaking in bulleted form is key, and I'll show you an example. Do not list hardships that are common, like I mentioned earlier. However, when you do list hardships, you must share what you did to overcome them. So always include your remedy when you're listing a hardship. How did you get to college level in spite of this thing? That's what you need to say. So the resume plus thing, let's talk about this. Don't just copy and paste your resume. You could start with a resume, for example, because a resume is in bulleted form, and that's a nice way to start. But just leaving your resume in this space is not right. What you need to do is what I call resume plus. You need to elaborate on important activities and achievements with, first, measurable results. So list the amount of money you raised for a club, the number of pillows that you sewed for the family shelter where you volunteered, the number of tutoring students that you served, etc. There are many measurables you can find for your important resume elements. And sometimes you can fit those into that college resume, but I really recommend here really dumping them all. Like, get as many measurables as you can and put them here in the additional info section. You have 650 words. You can really put a lot in. Milestones. So this is important turning points in your journey with a resume element. So like the book was published, or the article, or the study. Something you did won an award. So you want to detail those milestones. Don't just put like one award. Okay, like I got the Presidential Gold Award for X. Give more detail than that. You want to talk about when it happened. You want to talk about what was the deciding factor in the award. And if you know the names of the jurors or the institutions that gave it out, that kind of detail. Another thing I really like people adding to this is a favorite memory from the resume element that you're sharing. So it could be a moment of connection with a tutoring student, the feel of the crowd at a fundraiser, that mountain of handmade pillows that you built. So think about a key memory that you could throw into the additional info. Again, it's about making that humanization, that feeling of personal touch and connection with the reader so that they can really see you as a real person. Do not write without help. This is very detail oriented. And so I do recommend getting an adult that's very used to writing resumes and writing things out in bulleted form to help you. If anything, you can use admissions coaches for this. Hello. But not necessary. You can also work with any adult you think can help you format this stuff. But admissions coaches have the extra info and inside understanding about what colleges are looking for. So might be useful if you can find one. So here's an example of an additional info statement from a student. They did independent research at Columbia University while they were in high school. And these are two studies they did looking at some metadata from Open Data NYC. Oops. And in one study, looking at high school attendance in New York, and if the high school type changed attendance. And then a second one looking at community gardens and how the presence of community gardens changed things like income and crime and health, basically the quality of life in a neighborhood. Again, using Open Data NYC to mine the information. And you'll see he's broken it down into three parts: the methods they used, the findings, and the presentations. This is really useful stuff to include when you're including any kind of independent research. The methods you used, what you discovered, what you found, and then where was it shared, how was it shared, published or presented. Make sure all of that is included. Great, so that's that. This student also really wanted to share some key research papers they wrote. And the high school they went to put a lot of emphasis on end of year final papers. It was college level. It's a slightly different system than the public, common American public high school system. And so he wanted to share these research papers, so he shared the titles and the abstracts. One on the Algerian Independence War. And so you can see in these abstracts, he says in one or two sentences what he goes over and argues in these papers. This is a really cool thing to do if you're applying for some very heady academic stuff. You're aiming at sort of the top tier. It's helpful to share some of these more academic achievements and in detail, because it can show a school, hey, I know how to write a major paper. I know how to think about niche knowledge and present it in an academic way. And so this student does a pretty good job of articulating that here. Yeah, and in the second one, he's an urban studies student, so he's sure to share a paper about urban expansion. And he did very well with his applications. He got into some very fancy places, including Columbia, which is where he is now. All right, so that's that about the additional info statement. And I'll be getting to your questions in just a second. The one thing I want to point out is that there are also narrative supplements. And one way to get those started is to use my college essay starter. I'm going to share with you a link in the chat for this tool. If you were in my essay webinar a couple days ago, this is what we used to get the essays started. This same tool can be used for supplements. It is for narrative supplements. It's a great place to find those important stories that can help pad out your application. Also, when you're preparing for for college interviews, this is also a great tool to use to find topics to bring up for your college interview. College interviews require a little more storytelling than like a classic job interview. So this is a great tool for that. And you can go to my website, fill it out, and if you hit submit, I will give you a free consultation on your essay starter. Great. And so before we get to questions, just a quick review of the things I provide. I want to offer you all a special thing. If you want a consultation on your YS Super essay or your additional info essay, 100% happy to offer that to you for free. Let me just plunk in my Calendly link. So you can use this link to sign up for sessions with me. You can sign up for free for a 30-minute session, so go for it. Happy to help you. I also help students do college list building. I'm not just a writer. I also am trained at list building and researching schools and helping you match with schools. So if that's still a part of your journey right now, I can bring you some support for that. My number one thing is, of course, my essay coaching programs. These are tried and true. They're very successful. I have a lot of positive track record. All my students get into their first or second choice. And that was true last year even in the middle of that gigantic mess, which was the COVID pandemic admissions year, which I do not think 2021 will be like. I think it'll be a little tamer. So then beyond the essay coaching, there's support for all the elements of the application, activity and resume review, interview prep, this thing called demonstrated interest, which is engaging with your top schools outside of the application, which is a part of the decision schools make. Also, I just help you and families just lessen the stress of this so that it's not burdening you as much, so you can enjoy senior year and the parents can enjoy being your parents. And I also have pricing and plans for all budgets. It's not just a high cost service that I offer. If you want to reach out after this webinar, you can use my email. Let me throw that into the chat. My email and phone number. Oops. Great. All right. Oh, and then some promotions. So if any of you use Admitsy, I have a great promotion for them. Where they're offering $25 off their college class of 2022 packet. If any of you don't know what Admitsy is, it's a really cool service. You get to basically look at the applications, successful applications to the schools you want to get into, and get like exactly how did they format their additional info section? How did they do their YS? How did they do their main statement? All of that is in there. And they're giving, for attendees of this, they're giving $25 off their 2022 package, which is really cool. I'm also offering a promo. I have unlimited packages. So for students that want unlimited support for a couple of schools or maybe a handful of schools or maybe all of their schools that they're applying to, I'm offering a 10% discount. This is good until the end of the day on Friday the 17th. So if you want to take action on that, or you want to ask questions about it, just email me. Or you can sign up for one of my 30-minute sessions for free and we can chat that way. All right, so we have gotten all the way to the end. And now for the questions. All right, so Kathy asks, for the additional info section, should classes taken at a community college, not for high school credit, be included here? Wasn't sure since the classes will be on the receptive college transcripts the colleges will receive. So transcript information you don't put into additional info, but the student's point of view on the courses, the key achievements in the courses. For example, if they wrote a term paper for the course, you could put the title and abstract there. That's very helpful to do. But just the title of the course and where you did it, you don't need to put that. That's a transcript that the school will look at. But more info about it, a favorite memory from the class, that would be something I would put there. All right, so that I've answered. Angela, you ask a webinar thing. Great, we answered that one. The webinar for the first webinar of the series is done, and the video is live on YouTube, and the link I've emailed out to everyone who signed up for this course. So I'll be sure to email that again. Great. Angela asks again, could you also send today's webinar as well? You bet. I'll be doing that. Someone asks, do you have any advice for students who are older and are seeking to transfer, who haven't had as much recent academic experience but possess a lot of work experience? Yes. So transfer students, you have a slightly different job here. Transfer students really need to lean more onto the resume and less onto the narrative. The approach is more like applying to grad school. So this is where you describe what you've been doing professionally that's really nourished you, really gotten you curious about the academic side of the subject area. What's most important here is connecting what the school offers to what you've been doing out in the work field. And if what you've been doing for work is not exactly lined up with what you want to study, which is really common for people who go back to school, you can use hobbies, you can use courses you might have taken at a community college, you can use even like your interest online, like watching TED Talks or YouTube videos. You don't want to, base your entire application on casual research online, but these are things you can use outside of work experience. However, work experience or volunteer experience is going to be the best thing for your application. And of course, you're also going to have to explain why now, why not earlier, and these are all understandable things. If you want any support for writing that, I do help transfer students as well. Oh, great. And Deborah asks, the YS essays seem so specialized to each school. How do you change it without spending so much time on each school's submission? So the approach for that one, Deborah, it's a good question, is to create a super essay where you basically spend no more than an hour, usually less, researching the specific school that you're going to customize the essay for, researching those courses, special research opportunities, extracurriculars, and you plunk those into your super essay. So the super essay does take some time to fill in, to build out, but then you leave blank the courses, the research opportunity, the extracurriculars, but everything else is already written, which means the metaphor for learning, for your philosophy of learning, that's already all done. The questions the courses will answer, those are all written in already. Those are all done. The resume elements that you are connecting to, already all written out, all done. So all you're putting in are these things you can pull off of a website for a school. And it's amazing how well that works. So for anybody who also had that question, thank you, Deborah, because I definitely maybe have neglected to do that one. All right. Well, this has been a great treat for me to share this information with you all. If you have any more questions, 100% you can shoot me at justin@wowcollegeessay.com, or you can text me at that phone number. Until then, I wish you all a great night and all the best for your college dreams. I'm thrilled you're here. You're worth it. And I hope to meet you one day. All right, take care. And you'll see the video for this in your email soon. Okay, bye-bye.